Hello everyone and welcome back to Persona 3 Reload. So last Saturday, new stream, played until the next full moon, and hey, look at that! Things are finally starting to pick up. Complications are arising, new players are coming into the board. It's looking like things are picking up, finally. You're still very much waiting on the next full moon, but the plot is progressing. Curiously, there's a section where you're waiting for the chairman to tell you the results of his investigations. And he's, going over of how he's found out there are different types of shadows. They have classifications, and these new ones, the ones you meet on the full moon, fall into those categories from 1 to 12. And that, the 4 that you've met so far all fall within the categories 1 to 4. And, my thought was, why is this important? The important bit should be not that they fall within these 4 categories, but we still have 8 more categories to go, and every time they get stronger. And that doesn't seem to be the priority of the conversation. It's more like we have found the fascinating evidence that they fall within the categories of all the other shadows. I'm like, yeah, duh. Why is this important? And, I still cannot let go of my vision that the chairman is a bad guy. Only now, Kirijo is added to the list of suspicious people. Especially because Yukari suddenly has her arc. She has her story. She's found her voice. And it's all to do with a new member of the team, or support member. Because when she comes in, it's kind of weird how she's introduced into the team. And it feels a lot like she's pressured into doing it. Like there's not much of a choice or time to make that choice. And it rubs Yukari the wrong way. She's like, there's something suspicious here. There's something they're not telling us. Not to mention, she's using now the new member to do some, research into something that's happened in the past. Because she found out in the past, there were students in the school that simply vanished. They disappeared without a trace. And, nobody's brought them up. And she wants to know what happened to them. Why do people just disappear and there's no mention of it? Especially to them, the group of C's. You would think that would be relevant for them to know. Something that happened in the past, especially because Akihiko and Kirijo are supposed to be the veteran shadow hunters of the group. They've been with their personas for far longer. So you would think that there's something there that they maybe know or have heard of or is related to the current events. But, no. This Saturday was big in terms of social links. I didn't really visit all the others that I focused on last time. So I did a bit of the old couple, which I love them. I did a bit of Yuko, the manager for the track team, and her teaching of, the young kids. They're going to be running against 6th graders. That's all cool. No, my focus in terms of the existing social links, 100% on Katsushi, the guy from the track team. And fortunately, I finished it. Fortunately, it had a happy ending. It had a good ending where he decides, you know what? If I keep going, I'm going to damage my knee. I'm going to do really bad damage to myself at a great level just because I'm trying to be selfish about this. So no, I'm going to go away. I'm going to have surgery. I'm going to get my knee fixed. I'm going to, regain my health. And then I'll start competing and training and all that. Cool. That was great. The problem is, the road there was not easy. Not at all. Here, there's a moment where the mother calls the coach and tells him, hey, this guy has a busted knee. He should not be practicing. And first, Kazushi gets angry at his mom, but also the coach then decides, no, we're going to keep you in training, but if something comes up and it looks like it's getting worse, then we're going to make the call and say you need to stop for now. But for right now, you can keep going. I'm like, no, what the hell are you doing? That's not what your priority should be as a teacher. His health, his continued well-being should be your priority. Why are you just letting this guy run? Of course, everything goes bad. It all goes wrong. Not catastrophically, because again, it has a happy ending. But there is a moment where he just cannot run and can barely walk and needs members of the team to give him like a massage on his leg before he can just go back home and rest. But, that part kind of weird because the nurse and the coach were kind of in on it and letting this guy compete and continue training for national competitions without a healthy leg. Like, what the hell? What is going on here? I mean, it falls on the whole thing, that trope of coaches on TV shows and movies where they're all about the victory. They're all about that championship. And they, if they have to sacrifice a student or two, they'll do it. But it just is weird. It's a weird choice for these characters, especially because these are basically extras. It's not like they're Kamoshida from Persona 5, where he is known to be an abuser. No, these are just randos. And yet, they have that scene. I'm like, you should all be fired. You should all be let go from your jobs. That was the social link I focused on. But it wasn't the only one that I really kind of dove into. And I already mentioned, the existing ones, nothing. But I got into new ones. And these were all curious. And I'll say curious because they're all more or less, with one exception, they're all scumbags. They're all horrible people in one way or another. First up, there's a guy from the TV. Like a TV personality, like a CEO of something or other. He appears in the market channel that you can get to on Sundays and buy random items. He's on that show. And you need a certain grade of courage to be able to approach him. And what do you get when you finally pluck up the courage to ask him what his deal is? He tells you, I have an investment opportunity. It's going to cost you 20k yen. So immediately a scam. Fine. You pay him 20k. You can't get away with just telling him no, because then the thing doesn't progress. So you give him 20k. And then you give him another 20k. And then you give him another 10. And then finally, he kind of snaps at you, I've been scamming you. And you're like, so now we start the social link thing, and we actually do. And, he's the devil arcana. But what happened to my 50k? Why did Persona 3 take 50k from me for nothing? For just a social link? For a guy that is shady as all hell? It's kind of unpleasant, really. As an experience, especially with how tight money is in Persona 3. But beyond him, there's the Gourmet King, which is a, roly-poly, chubby character from school who's all about getting all the secret menus from all the places you can eat at in the town and so on. He is not fully unpleasant, but also not pleasant. He has this I am great, you're a pleb kind of attitude that just makes me want to chuck him out a window. But there seems to be something going on with him. A guy shows up to threaten him. I don't know. I'll keep going with it, but, it's not the most interesting one. Then we got one that I've been working towards for a while, and it's Chihiro. That's the only good one of the bunch. She's like the social anxiety girl, like treasurer for the student council. She can barely talk to you, but you kind of manage to get her a bit out of her shell and convince her to, walk home. Only she lives in the opposite direction, but was too afraid to say anything. And, gets a few more outings with her, and she starts a bit to loosen up, just little by little. And she's kind of cute. She's kind of, sweet, but very naive. And it's pretty interesting to see the way that relationship is unfolding. He's kind of very much coaxing the social interaction out of her. And she starts to get a bit more comfortable with it, because one of her plans is, of course, to be perfectly loose and be able to interact with people, with all her fellow students, and, just have a normal relationship with them. The funny thing is, her issues are primarily with men. And it's because her father is a stern figure, like really scary guy. And it kind of stuck with her that all men are scary, which to me, it kind of cracked me up on the inside, because there's an anime called Working, where there is a character that just punches men on sight because her father filled her head with notions that all men are beasts. They're all monsters. They're all coming after you for one sole purpose. And so she just started punching and dishing out the damage to anyone that came close. The last social link I checked out, still kind of a scumbag, but far more interesting than the other two, those being the Gourmet King and the Scammer, is just a monk. A monk that you find in a nightclub. And he's there chain smoking and drinking alcohol with like gold rings on his fingers. He's the least Buddhist monk I have ever seen. And he seems to have some drama with his wife and his kid. You know, they don't see him, they don't approach him, he's on their own, he's lost them in some capacity. But, you know, you're just interacting with him in this club, and he barely says anything. But still, the social link continues to advance. All the while, he's threatening to throw you out of the club. So, you know, delightful fella. Now, in terms of mechanics, there was something that happened the previous week that I didn't comment on in my video, and it's Theurgy. Because we only did like the basic tutorial for it, but this time around, I really had a chance to play with it, and it's very much like a limit break. You know, just goes to show you add a special move to characters in an RPG, people will enjoy it. So everybody gets a special attack that deals a lot of damage and bypasses resistances, which is the main selling point. You know, combined with things that boost your crit and lower the defense on enemies and raise your attack, you are capable of dealing some massive damage now. What I like about it, beyond it being essentially a limit break system like we've seen in mirror games, you know, Final Fantasy has limit breaks, the Trails series has the S-Crafts, which are basically limit breaks. The way they work here is, I find this fascinating. It's a very curious bit of game design that also makes every character unique and matches their in-game skills with more or less their story. And it's the fact that to raise the bar, like to fill out the bar that would allow you to do this super attack, it's different for every character. Yukari gets it from healing. I think Akihiko gets it from just doing melee damage with his fists, while Kirijo does it by inflicting status effects. And since her persona has the one skill that I can use to lower someone's defense, well, you can see where I'm going. I literally lower people's defense, raise my bar for a bit of Theurgy, and just attack and deal a bunch of damage. It's a great combo, really. And it's a great system. It really helps, especially with bosses and enemies that keep showing up that don't have any weaknesses whatsoever, which has become a bit of my pet peeve. They basically break let's call it the gameplay contract of Persona, where you match elements to weaknesses and get extra turns and so on. And, you know, it's fine if you have some enemies that don't have any weaknesses, but they're becoming predominant. And so the Theurgy is one great way of just bypassing that restriction and dealing a bunch of damage. Better yet, once you find certain personas, the main characters, Theurgy changes. Or, you know, get more options. Like right now I have one that is a combination of, I think, Skull Lantern, like the Will-O-Wisp, the Skull Jack, and the Ice character, like the Ice persona. And they both do like a comedy set where one is like the straight man, the other one is the comedy guy, like the hype man or whatever. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty creative, deals a lot of damage, and it's fun to use. Sorry, no, that doesn't deal damage. I think it just boosts your agility and accuracy and heals people. That's what it does. It's pretty damn good. But back to the story and characters, Junpei continues to be Junpei. Now he's getting more and more jealous of the main character, to the point where I haven't benched. I've not put him in any fight whatsoever. I'm not going to. I don't like him. I don't want to interact with him. He's staying in the bench. Forever. Or for as long as I can keep him in the bench. If at some point in the story he makes the point of having to come for an encounter and the game forces me to do so, fine. He can join. But until then, he's staying in his box like all the discarded Pokemon. So, you know, he still has this like jealousy towards the main character. And I finished the full moon, and he was really upset everything that's going on and how much praise you're getting. You know, it's like, bro, I'm the protagonist. People love me. Shut up. But beyond Yori, beyond Junpei, this episode finally introduced new players, new threats, new potential. And it could be allies. Primarily, I think they're going to be enemies. And it's a creepy trio of kind of like assassins. When we see them, they're appearing before someone in one of those coffins, during the dark hour. And I don't know if it's because of them or some other factor, but the person in the coffin wakes up and finds themselves active in the dark hour. And they just shoot him. They straight up pull a gun and shoot him because, someone paid them to do it. And you find out through, a little bit of grapevine in school that there is some kind of revenge website where you can, put someone's name in and get revenge, carried out by these three creepers. And I mentioned at the very beginning that I remember watching, partially remember watching the anime movies for Persona 3. And I mentioned that one of the designs that stuck with me was this creepy, villain that had a hippie look. And hey, look at that. That's the guy that showed up. So I don't know what he's about. I don't remember that much about the movie, but I'm interested to see because, he seems to be perfectly happy and capable of exploring the Dark Hour. But I'm not sure what his deal is just yet, but I think he's going to be an antagonist for sure. He did mention they didn't have too much time left. Almost like they're dying or there's something wrong with them. So I'm interested in seeing where that aspect goes. And I'm guessing it's going to be the next time a game really shows me what their deal is. And I got to give props to the game. This full moon was much more interesting. Not only because it had the preamble of introducing the creepy guys, but also, once again, you fight two shadows. One being the Hierophant and the other one being lovers. And you do it inside a love hotel. First you strike it against the Hierophant and just take him out. And then, when you go near a mirror, everybody has this weird feeling and you wake up in a room almost with a voice in your head telling you to essentially do the deed with Yukari. And Yukari herself has apparently that voice in her head. But you snap out of it, and when Yukari walks in the room and realizes she only has a towel on herself, she also snaps out, slaps you, which I disagree on because, hey, did nothing wrong. I was trapped here just as you, so whatever. But then you go and fight Lovers, and Lovers actually is the first one with an actual interesting mechanic. It's primarily a boss that inflicts one negative status, which is Charm. And if you don't pull Charm out of a character as quickly as possible, then Lovers will do an attack called Heartbreaker, which consumes the charm in those afflicted and deals huge damage on them. So you have to postpone your attacking to maybe spend some time curing everybody of charm, because also when they're charmed, they attack you, or buff or heal the boss. So you need to basically take care of it before it becomes a liability. And I really enjoy that. I was waiting for that in the bosses of Persona 3. Something that was more than just hit the thing with this element to get a special attack off, but something that required some strategy to improve on or to perfect or simply to succeed in terms of the goal at hand. So I'm happy about that. What I'm not happy about is that Tartarus continues to be a incredible disappointment. The floors all look the same even now in this new section, because before I had gotten up to as high as I could. So the next stage should have come up as soon as you started after the previous full moon. But instead it's still the same kind of tentacle ribbed corridors. And I'm like, really? You couldn't spring for a better looking place than this? The shadows are still very much I mean, for the most part, especially those just, regular standard monsters. They're getting better in the Guardians of the different floors. Those look a bit more, interesting. But for the most part, they're still, hit with an element, take advantage, hit with an element, take advantage. Or, as I mentioned before, they started rolling out guys that just don't have weaknesses. And so it becomes a bit of a slog to fight them. Not a fan, but whatever. Now, something I complained in the past is that the main character is incredibly passive. And I maintain that. He is so passive, he doesn't take initiatives, he doesn't act on the information that he has acquired. Which is, why you need Yukari to have the entire arc of figuring out what's going on with the Kirito group and the chairman and everything, because the main character just won't do it. And there have been a couple of moments where you're told to go into the command room and check the consoles. And in those moments, you go and watch a recording. The previous one was of the command room itself, which is fine. That room should have cameras. But then the new one is of a recording of Junpei's room when Kirito storms in with a cop saying that Junpei has been taken or he's in danger, and he was just somewhere out in a cafeteria or like a manga cafe just chilling. But why do they have cameras in people's rooms? Like, we know why. It's to spy on them, really. Like they did with the main character at the beginning. But at no point does this character go, hey, these people are spying on us. Let's confront them and see what the hell's going on. No, he just takes the information, does nothing with it, and you just wait for the next, whatever you need to do. But things are progressing. Looking forward to what happens next time, because I'm hoping, truly, that we get introduced to these creepy guys and what their deal is all about. So I will be back with this next Saturday. Might be a bit later than usual. I have some things to do. But I will definitely be playing and continuing the story, and we'll see just what happens on the next full moon. See ya.